Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the most boring, atrocious, miserable, abysmal, disgusting recording of Holst the Planet you've ever heard in your life. And you know, one of you heard this already and wrote to me in the comments, maybe you'll have seen it, and said, I just listened to Daniel Harding's Bavarian radio, the radio version of the Planets, and you're going to hate it. He didn't tell me if it was any good or not. He told me I would hate it. And of course, I hate being predictable. I mean, no critic wants to be completely predictable. We like to feel that we have a certain openness, to differing interpretations and a willingness to accept things that are different. And so I came into this really wanting to love it. And it sucks. It just sucks beyond belief. The guy was totally right. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the planets before we get to why it sucks beyond belief. I mean, the reasons are really very simple. But the planets is essentially a study in rhythm. I mean, more than anything else, it doesn't have a lot of emotional expression. I mean, it has a couple good tunes, but basically it's rather cool because it's space music. I mean, it's the origin of like all the space music and movies that came after that. But the outer movements are in strange time signatures, like 5/4 or 5/4, 7/4, stuff like that. And then you've got movements that are in compound meters, like Mercury is in 6/8, and Uranus is in also like 6/8 or 9/8 or one of those. It's very rhythmically tricky. And if you get the rhythms, it's not so bad. But some of them are very difficult, especially at tempo. For example, the main rhythm in Mercury, which you really never even hear, it's chong chong cha 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 chong cha chong 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 cha 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 chong 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 in 6/8 time. I know because I had to play the glockenspiel at that speed, in that tempo, in that rhythm, and to keep those triplets, tum bum ba ta 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 tum ba tum bum ba, it's very very hard. It really is. So it's tricky, and orchestras need to practice it in order to get the rhythms right. I mean, you can't just wing it. It just won't work. Even if you're a really great orchestra, it just won't work. And I have a wonderful story about that because I had a friend who worked for Sony. His name was Pierre. He was a lovely guy. And he suggested to Leonard Bernstein, before they made their recording of the planets, that they should do it in concert. And Bernstein, said, okay, we'll do it in concert. But they had a concerto and some other stuff. They didn't have much time to rehearse it. And so Pierre tells me the concert was a catastrophe. It all went to shit, pardon me. It went to pieces. And afterwards, he came into the green room and Bernstein grabbed him by the collar and said, why did you tell me to do that? It takes a lot of rehearsal. And it does. There's some pieces that are like that because they're just tricky. The Sorcerer's Apprentice is another one. James Levine, gave an interview when he recorded it with the Berlin Philharmonic and said that they almost couldn't play it initially. It was very difficult for them to get it because it's so rhythmically complicated. So the planets is like that, okay? So let's say you have an orchestra that doesn't play the planets every 15 minutes, as the Bavarian Radio Orchestra doesn't. Now, Daniel Harding, you would think, would be a good guy for the planets because he's into precision, and emotionally, he's about as cold a fish as you get, as often as not. I mean, he's done some good things too. I'm not saying he's bad. Nobody's that talented and has, positions with these orchestras unless they know what they're doing. I mean, most of the time. But he should have been a good person for the planets. But obviously, he's either conducting it at rehearsal tempos, which is what he's doing, or he has a conception of the work that is slow as molasses and boring as molasses. And it's not just a question of speed. It's also a question of accent. I mean, and keeping the rhythms taut and exciting. So Mars it's as slow as, for example, Haitink, but Haitink had the rhythm because he had the London Philharmonic, which could play it without him. and so they did it, and it was fine. And then the rest of them were all at normal speeds. I mean, it was okay. It was a beautiful performance, actually. But this is as slow as Haitink, but with none of the weight. I mean, this Mars is the mind-numbing dullness of war. It's cha 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 bum 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 ba da da dum bum 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 do da dum bum 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 do da dum bum ba da. I mean, it's about as threatening as, like, you know, a hangnail. It's ridiculous. Venus, of course, is, you know, the bringer of peace. Well, this is the mind-numbing, comatose, nirvana-like peace. Then you've got Mercury, the winged messenger. He's got a flat tire. Really, I mean, that has to be just played as quickly as you can articulate it. You know, like that. Because there's no real melody there. It's all just texture, right? Then there's Jupiter, the big, fat, lazy bringer of jollity. Well, there's not much jollity, but there's a lot of big, fat laziness in it. And Saturn is the bringer of old age. Oh my God, this is the corpse. I mean, this is beyond dead. It's deader than dead. You don't think it's going to that march is just, oh my God, it's just, oh, it's interminable. And then Uranus is, I mean, all of it is muffled. It's colorless. It's undercharacterized. And then by the time you get to the end with the women's chorus and all that, and Celeste rippling, like, who cares? It sounds like you've been in the outer reaches of the Oort cloud since the very beginning. There's been nothing that's happened along the way. It's just awful. It's horrible beyond belief. And so this recording from Bavarian Radio richly deserves the Scarlet Scarf of Shame. Yes, it's time to take it out and to bestow it upon possibly the most terrible performance of something that should be unkillable that I've heard in many, many a moon. It's just dreadful. It has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And so, yes, Maestro Harding, you have earned the Scarlet Scarf of Shame for doing what I thought was impossible, blowing the planets. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.